Let me tell you something up front. If you're scared of stories that keep you awake at night, maybe this isn't the best thing to read before bed. But if you're ready to hear a real terrifying story, sit back and listen carefully. This one's about a place straight out of a nightmare, the Matthews house in England. Now, this isn't your ordinary house. It's an old mansion over 300 years old, surrounded by mystery and secrets that make you feel like someone's watching you even before you step inside. The mansion sits in a small village far from the city, right at the edge of a dense forest. People in the village always avoided it, not because it was old or creepy, but because everyone knew something about that house wasn't right. The story begins with a family who decided to buy the house for an unbelievably cheap price. Imagine getting a whole mansion 4 stories high with a massive garden for the price of a tiny house. When the family saw the ad, they thought they'd hit the jackpot. But what they didn't know was that they were walking into a trap. Their first night in the house, everything seemed fine, but the youngest daughter, Ella, woke up in the middle of the night screaming. When her father ran into the room to check on her, he found her sitting up in bed, her eyes wide open like she was seeing something the rest of them couldn't. When he asked her what happened, she said she heard a man whispering in her ear, asking her why they had come here. Over the next few days, things only got weirder. The dad would hear heavy footsteps upstairs, even though the house was empty. The mom saw shadows moving down the hallways when she was alone. But the strangest thing was the locked room in the basement. No one could open it. The door seemed sealed shut, like it was welded closed, and no key would fit. It always gave him the feeling that something very dark was hidden inside it. One day, the dad decided to call a handyman to try to open the locked door. The guy came with his tools, but after just 30 minutes he packed up and left, saying, "I can't be in this house." Not long after that, the mom found an old wooden box in the cellar. It was covered in dust and locked with a tiny key. When they opened it, they found a small leather-bound journal inside, written in a strange handwriting. The pages were filled with stories about people who had lived in the house before them. All of them had disappeared under mysterious circumstances. The final line in the journal read, "If you are reading this, it's already too late." The house wasn't just haunted, it was a prison for an evil spirit trapped inside it, a spirit that would torment anyone who dared to live there. Everyone who had lived in that house before them had met the same fate. Strange noises at night, turning into screams, objects moving on their own, and eventually one member of the family would start to change, like they weren't themselves anymore. One dark night around 3 in the morning, which we all know as the witching hour, the mom woke up suddenly with the feeling that someone was standing by her bed. She slowly opened her eyes and saw a tall, dark figure looming over her. She couldn't make out its features, but the voice she heard was crystal clear. It said, "Why did you open the box?" She froze in fear, unable to move or scream. When she turned toward her husband to wake him, she realized he wasn't in bed. In that moment, the shadow vanished, and she heard heavy footsteps echoing down the hallway. She got up and rushed out of the room looking for him, and found him downstairs, standing in front of the locked basement door. He was holding a hammer, and his eyes, they weren't normal anymore. They were pitch black, like they were filled with nothing but darkness. When she tried to talk to him, he responded in a voice that wasn't his own. "I have to open it. I need to see what's inside." She tried to pull him away, but he shoved her aside with so much force she fell hard to the ground. And then he started smashing the door with the hammer, like something inside him was compelling him to do it. When the door finally broke open, the sound it made wasn't like with splintering. It was like the house itself was groaning in pain. Inside the room, there was nothing but an old chair in the center and walls covered in deep scratches, like someone had been trapped in there for years. But the most terrifying thing was the far wall. Their family name was written in blood, like it had been carved there long before they even bought the house. Suddenly, the entire house began to shake. Screams filled the air, coming from everywhere, and the dad, still holding the hammer, started laughing in a way that wasn't human. The mom grabbed Ella and ran out of the house, sobbing, leaving the dad behind inside. But it didn't end there. After they left the house, the dad started disappearing for hours at a time. When he came back, he'd sit in a corner whispering to himself, saying, "You can't escape him, he always finds you in." Then one day, he disappeared completely, like the earth had swallowed him whole. Desperate, the mom went back to the village and asked the locals about the mansion. She wanted answers, especially since it was clear they all knew something about it. One of the elders told her Matthews' house isn't just an old house. It was owned by a man named Jonathan Matthews, a sorcerer who practiced black magic and committed horrific crimes against children. When the villagers discovered what he was doing, they trapped him inside the house and burned it to the ground. But before he died, he cursed the place, saying his spirit would remain there forever and he would rule over anyone who entered it. The mom tried to sell the house, but no one would buy it. Every time She tried to start a new life. The haunting followed her. The strange noises from the mansion began to echo in her new apartment. The shadows started appearing everywhere. And Ella started acting strangely too, drawing disturbing faces and saying Daddy is coming. Back one day, the mom found Ella sitting in a corner talking to someone invisible. When she asked who are you talking to, Ella looked at her with a chilling smile and said to Mr. Matthews, "So you see, the story doesn't really end the house, never lets anyone go. Even if they leave, it always finds a way to bring them back. No matter how far they run, the curse stays with them forever." ChatGPT.